Guys, take out your notes if you did them and follow along. Let's talk about Section 6. The Allies win World War II. I hope you knew that was coming, but in case you didn't. So our learning objectives. We're going to analyze the planning and impact of the invasion of Normandy, D-Day, Operation Overlord. We're going to understand how the Allies achieved final victory in Europe. And we're going to explore the reasons President Truman decided to use the atomic bomb against Japan. We'll be talking about the Battle of the Bulge, Harry Truman, island hopping, kamikazes, Albert Einstein, the Manhattan Project, and J. Robert Oppenheimer. A big three meet. That's Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. Operation Overlord involved the most experienced Allied officers in Europe. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, British General Bernard Montgomery, and General Omar Bradley. U.S. Army Chief of Staff George Marshall had long pushed for an Allied invasion of France. Eisenhower had been given command of all American forces in Europe in 1942, even though more than 350 other generals had more seniority. After strong performances in North Africa, FDR trusted him. Operation Overlord involved 21 American divisions and 26 British, Canadian, Polish divisions on a 50-mile stretch of beaches in Normandy. The fleet was the largest ever assembled, comprising more than 4,400 ships. writer called D-Day the, quote, longest day. For many American soldiers, it was a very short day, and their last day on Earth. Some fought bravely and died. Others fought bravely and survived, and by the end of the day, the Allies had gained a toehold in France. Within a month, more than 1 million Allied troops landed at Normandy, but there were many still held German defenses. After D-Day, Germany faced a hopeless two-front war. Soviet soldiers were advancing steadily from the east, forcing German armies out of Latvia, Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary. Mile by mile, Germany lost the lands it had once dominated and the natural resources that it needed to continue fighting. Hitler's desperate counterattack is today known as the Battle of the Bulge, and it almost succeeded. The Germans did catch us by surprise and did create a bulge in the American line, and they captured several key towns. Snowy, cloudy skies prevented the Allies from exploiting our air superiority. But at the Belgian town of Bastogne, American forces led by Eisenhower and General Patton held despite frostbite and brutal German assaults. And then, on December 23rd, the skies cleared and the Allied bombers began to take it to the German positions.
In 1944, the Ardennes region of Belgium was the frontier between Nazi Germany and the Allies. On December 16th, 250,000 German troops launched a shattering surprise offensive here. 500,000 Americans, the majority of the Allied force, were engulfed in what would become the greatest land battle ever fought by American troops in the 20th century. The Ardennes offensive began as a success for Hitler, but would end up, after the Battle of the Bulge, as a total defeat for Germany.
General George S. Patton is the American general who is most feared by the Germans. He is inspirational. Part of his inspiration is how visible he was and how flamboyant he was and how profane he should be. At the same time, he is a thoroughly professional soldier.
Well, Patton was a remarkable man. He was a cavalryman, and he employs cavalry tactics, which you could equate slightly to blitzkrieg. And Patton is the sort of man who doesn't care much about casualties. It's get up and go, attack, attack, attack. He doesn't believe in defense.
Patton demonstrated this talent for mobility and speed by wheeling his entire Third Army north to counterattack the German flank and race to relieve the siege of Bastogne. It was an extraordinary maneuver.
In making a major move or a change in direction for an army of tens of thousands, or in the case of the three divisions that Patton sent to relieve Bastogne, where you're talking about upwards to 50,000 men, and think of all of their vehicles and supplies and food and ammunition.
A major battlefield move of this complexity didn't just happen. It took a huge amount of planning. Professor Tom Hatfield has researched Patton's role in the Bulge campaign. He believes the American general was able to carry out the huge move so smoothly because he was so well prepared.
Patton was known for paying very careful attention to intelligence reports. If you went back to see Eisenhower, it is well known that he would take some extra time to stay and have discussions with intelligence officers. So in October of '44, a full 2 months before the German attack, Patton is beginning to suspect that something is wrong over in the area which became the originating point for the German attack, that things are too quiet over there.
Though most of the Allies' intelligence services, like Station X at Bletchley Park, failed to detect the German buildup, Patton's suspicions led him to prepare for the worst.
Patton directed his operations staff to prepare some operational plans, and one of those was the possibility of a German breakthrough that would come in the Ardennes, and how the Third Army, Patton's Third Army, would be able to respond.
And amazingly, when he gets the order to do just that, within 48 hours he's turned his army round.
Patton's uncanny instinct for war paid off. On December 26th, Allied troops in Bastogne were relieved. It would come to be known as the most famous action of the Battle of the Bulge.
Hitler, now a physical wreck, shaken by tremors, paranoid from drugs, and kept alive by mad dreams of final victory. He gave orders that no one could follow. He planned campaigns that no one would ever fight. And finally, on April 30th, he and a few of his closest associates committed suicide. His 1,000-year Reich had lasted only a dozen years. The world's first atomic bomb, codenamed Trinity, was detonated in the New Mexico desert on July 16, 1945. Why do you think it was important to the Allies that they successfully develop an atomic bomb before the Axis? Can you imagine being here? This is a photograph of Americans celebrating the surrender of Japan in August of 45. At long last, World War II was over. Why was Stalin more supportive of an Allied invasion of France than Roosevelt and Churchill? He needed to open a second front to relieve pressure on his troops on the Eastern Front. How were the Allies able to keep the planned invasion at Normandy a secret from the Nazis? The answer is C. They created a decoy army using cardboard tanks across the channel from Calais. What was the result of the Battle of the Bulge? That answer, my friends, is D. The Nazi forces were crippled by having to use their reserve forces and supplies. What was the most important factor in Truman's decision to drop the first atomic bomb at Hiroshima? A. Limiting further U.S. casualties.